Chapter 15. Justin jumped out of the cab running, dragging Heather by her hand with her winded, after he tipped the cab driver. He scurried in the direction of a small plane in an airport hangar next to a large jet that had the Samsa's logo on the side. The Samsa name is written across it, in a bright picture of a large white wolf against a blue background. "Is it ready?" he said to a mechanic. "As ready as it's going to be, with a half an hour's notice." After he bounded into the pilot's seat and buckled Hannah in, with a frightened look on her face, and afraid to ask where they were going, he turned to her. "Put your seatbelt on." She glanced around. Looking at Hannah, Justin saw her apprehension and disbelief of what had transpired an hour before. He said to her, "We're going to my family's cabin in the woods. No one will be able to find us there." "Why aren't you going to your family's ranch, Nevada? You said before." "I can't bring you there until I speak with my father. He has to break the news to Wilder. There are no decisions made unless all brothers are present. We're ready to take off. Sit back until I tell you it's okay, and don't take off your seatbelt." "Like in an airplane. Only a much bigger one than this." "I hope you know what you're doing," Hannah said, watching at Justin, who appeared to know how to fly that small plane. "Why didn't we take the jet?" "I don't have my pilot's license to fly a jet, and I couldn't get a pilot without my father finding out about it. We need to fly low and not call attention to us. My father would have told the pilot not to do it anyway," he said, glancing over at Hannah to make sure she had buckled the seatbelt correctly. "This plane is mine. I can do with it as I wish." "You must be rich. Like Jovani." He glanced over at Hannah, but she didn't see the expression of displeasure at the sound of Jovani's name coming from Hannah's mouth. Did she not understand what Jovani meant to the both of them? He thought. After a request for takeoff and the acknowledgement given, Justin headed southwest. If he could get closer to home, he knew he and Hannah would be safe. But first he had to hide out in the woods of Virginia. Deep in the forests on the eastern border of Kentucky and western Virginia stood a cabin unknown to many. It came with a caretaker who cleaned it every 6 months, brought in food and water, wood for a fire whenever his older brothers visited New York and wanted to hunt. They drove out to the cabin. "We're almost there. Over these trees and we can set down the plane." Justin pointed to the top of large pines in the heavily wooded forest with old trees of every kind. "How can you see where we're landing? All I see is fog." "The panel here tells me everything I need to know. This aircraft has state-of-the-art computers and sensors. If something goes wrong, it will show up," Justin said, glancing over at Hannah with a wide smile. "Like this," she said, pointing at the controls. "That light is blinking, and it says the fuel is low." "It's the gas." He didn't fill the tank. Justin hit the steering column in frustration. "The mechanic thought I was going a few miles and bring it back. I didn't tell him I was taking it to the cabin," Justin said, trying to think of what to do next. There wasn't much to do but pray. The plane sputtered and then cut off. "Hold on, Hannah. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. We're going to make it out of here." Hannah wasn't so sure. She clutched her seat and closed her eyes. She heard a loud bang as if the small plane hit a treetop, and then it bounced and turned over, and she sat upside down, tethered by her seatbelt, and when it hit the ground she didn't remember what happened next. When she woke, her eyes opened wide enough to see Justin's eyes, but his body appeared large and furry with a voice like Justin. "Don't worry, Hannah, you'll be all right. I have you. Just hold on to me." She was afraid to speak. She held her breath as the trees rushed by. She managed to open her eyes and see tall trees and thick brush as her body swished by with her cradled in the arms of someone who looked like a wolf, but stood like a man. Only when she neared a clearing did she open her eyes, and then she heard running water. In the dark of the night she saw little, but she heard the sounds of a forest. Owls stalking small animals and finding them, and the tiny screams of their prey. Crickets piping and birds chirping from the disturbance of the running through high brush, like a large animal beating against the grass and leaves of trees, and then finally stopping. Stay here, Justin said when he placed Hannah on her feet. No. Don't leave me here. I want to go with you, she said, holding on to his arm. I need to change, and I don't think you're ready to see that yet. Hannah stood still with her arms to her side and her body stiff, afraid to move and look around. She kept her face in the direction of what she made out to be the door of a cabin. She saw Justin's dark figure open the door and walk in. He stood looking around and began his shift to that of a human. Then he rushed to the bedroom and opened a large chest containing jeans and stacks of flannel shirts in different sizes. He found one that fit. It was a blue and black, and he hurriedly put it on. He didn't want to leave Hannah for long. Justin trod shoeless out into the dark, foggy night and took Hannah's hand. She shuddered when he touched her. Come with me, he said. She let him lead her into the house and into a large room. He found a light and turned it on. Now sit down. It's my mother's chair, and I'll start the fire. He leaned down and threw wood into the fireplace, and then placed some paper to get it started, and then stoked it, and soon it was blazing hot. Through the dim-lit room and the roaring fire, she saw Justin's face and body. He kneeled at her feet and looked up at her. You have been through a lot today. When you're ready, I'll show you to your bedroom. I'll get you something to eat. Is soup and bread okay? Of course it was okay, thought Hannah. After being almost kidnapped by a warlock and threatened with bodily harm, everything was okay as long as she was still breathing. And where is Jovani when she needed him? When was he to find out what became of her, when her body shows up in a morgue, or when Gabriella calls her in as missing? She never considered what her parents would do if she were missing like all those unfortunate girls. They would probably die, she thought. Sitting with her hands in her lap and staring at the fire, she imagined she saw someone's face in the sparks. It was all an illusion. It looked like Jovani. That was just her imagination because he had been her savior before, and she thought it would be him who could save her now, but he didn't know that she was stuck away in a forest that no one could get to, not even him. When Justin came back, he was holding a large cup with a handle, and in that cup she smelled chicken soup. He handed it to her, and she brought it to her nose and inhaled the aroma. She slid down the chair and sat on the floor. Reaching up, she took the cup, and he handed her a large piece of hard bread. She didn't mind. She was hungry, and anything would do. Tomorrow, I'll go to town and get you something fresher. The caretaker doesn't bring much, only something for him. If he thought my family was coming to hunt, or my brother, the one I house sat for, he would have had the place stocked. Things just happened, and at the last minute, well, you know. He watched at Hannah sitting with her legs crossed on the floor in front of the fire, her back against the chair. He knew he was in love. He knew she would make a wonderful mate if he could get rid of the vampire. We don't eat this kind of food, you know, Justin said. What do you mean? Hannah said as she took a break from her soup. But still chewing on the bread. My pack. I mean, my uncle and fathers and cousins and brothers, we're werewolves and we eat freshly killed meat. Hannah wrinkled her nose. We hunt our food when we're here and in the forest around our homes. Hannah stopped eating. I think I need to go to bed. When are we leaving? It will be a week or more. But I have to let Gabriella know where I am. I text her in the cab and she said she would cover for me with my parents if they called, but I have to let her know something. I didn't have time to get your purse. Hannah panicked. My phone was in that purse and that's my best purse. You can get another. Now here's my mother's gown. You can sleep in her room. And where are you going to sleep? She said, raising an eyebrow. I have my own room. But I prefer to sleep with you. I can sleep on the floor near your bed. Hannah stood. How many rooms do you have in this cabin? And where is the restroom? There are 2 bedrooms downstairs and 5 upstairs. Every bedroom has a restroom, Justin said. This isn't a cabin. It's a mansion, Hannah said. And then Hannah walked to the back past a large dining room with a wooden table that seats 10. I wouldn't know. I don't look at it like that. When you get to the end, make a right. The light wasn't bright, and she didn't know why, but it was enough for her to see where she was going as she ambled along clutching a warm nightgown to her body, with Justin watching her. When she found the door, she opened it and walked in. Justin heard the shower running, and he sat thinking about what he had done. It wasn't wrong to help Hannah, but it was wrong to bring her to the cabin where they would be tracked by the witches, and, if he's unlucky, by Jovani. As Hannah was climbing into bed, Jovani decided it was time to meet Sasha face to face.